This is your 3 p.m. news update on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. The Scrap Iron Dealers Association is calling on the relevant authorities to reconsider a decision to put out a public tender. The tender involves the removal of scrap from the Heritage Petroleum Company Limited. The association held a media conference earlier today to address the issue. Police Commissioner Gary Griffith has denied that homeless persons were ticketed for not wearing face masks. This comes following reports over the weekend that at least 5 homeless people were issued fixed penalty tickets by police for failing to wear masks in San Fernando. One opposition senator has called the government careless and irresponsible in the creation of COVID-19 regulations. She is also calling for an immediate review of the measures. Regionally, national examinations will go on as scheduled in the Bahamas. And internationally, a new antibody treatment is to be trialed on COVID-19 patients in hospital in the United Kingdom. And that was your 3 p.m. news update on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. Look out for more of these and other stories in our major newscast at 4 p.m.
That was Major News to the Hour, brought to you with the very kind compliments of Super Quality Supermarket, Sheikh Lisha Limited, the Trinidad and Tobago Newsday, and Darban Trading Company Limited.
Join our pre-budget discussions on U975 FM Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio every Monday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. with financial analyst Ved Siram and other experts in the field of economics. Our pre-budget discussions will focus on all stakeholders in the economy and what they expect. You can also join our post-budget discussion on Monday, 5th October 2020 right here on U975 FM Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. Good afternoon and welcome to the airwaves of U975 FM. My name is Nicole Dookie and I will be in your company all the way till 3 p.m. today, and it's pre-budget, rather 6 p.m. today. Thank you, Shiva, for that. It's our U975 FM pre-budget discussions today and every Monday until Budget Day, which is October 5th, 2020. And joining me in studio is financial analyst Ved Siram. A little later on the show, we'll also be joined by a former government minister, Dr. Bo Tiwari, and of course, we're going to be telling you, sharing news and information as it relates to Budget 2020 in Trinidad and Tobago. This is just a reminder that you can join our discussions at 636-7547, 227-5739, or you can also WhatsApp us at 378-4975. We are broadcasting live on YouTube on RCLU 975, so you can also post your comments on our YouTube channel. Well, at this time, I just want to welcome Mr. Siram to the airwaves of 97.5. Good afternoon, Mr. Siram, and how are you doing?
Good afternoon, Nicole. I'm fine, and good afternoon to all listeners and viewers.
All right. Well, Mr. Siram, we're here today to start our pre-budget discussions. Budget 2020, as the Minister of Finance would have announced, will be on the 5th of October. And already a lot of people are lending their voices as to what they would expect in the budget, this budget particular the 2020-2021 fiscal package. Just today, we had the former Prime Minister, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa. She would have stated that she hopes that government works towards, the benefits of small businesses. I don't know if you would have read her statement, but she's saying that government must implement measures to protect small businesses. As you would have known, within the last few weeks or so, with the global pandemic upon us, a lot of businesses, small businesses in particular, have been suffering. A lot of them have been, basically, most of them are closing. And with the situation even worsening, we don't know what to expect. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think most people are confused about this budget that we expect, and this has to be looked at as a wartime budget. I've read some of the commentators saying that government must cut taxes, they must cut this, give incentives, etc. That is old school thinking, very, very old school thinking, and it does not apply to today's conditions. We should be looking at this as a wartime budget, and not to stimulate economic activities, but rather to survive. We need a strategy to survive in the short and medium term. We need a strategy to survive, and we have to look at fundamentals now. I'm looking at very, very basic about feeding the nation.
Yes.
We have to look at that. We have to look at sheltering those who don't have shelter. We have to ensure that medicines and so on are in place, or some form, not necessarily the tablets and so on, but some sort of preventative medicine as well.
Yes.
We have to look at that. And all the traditional thinking about balancing budgets and so on, whilst that will come into play, the focus has to be somewhere else. What the government is going to do, and you've seen it in the manifesto as well,
Yes.
is that they say they're going to spend money on infrastructure, spend money on developing the airport, spend money on roads to Toko, spend money on building the San Fernando the waterfront.
Yes.
And quite frankly, that is, in my view, it's a serious effect of the virus that's
Yes.
causing madness in administration.
How do they accomplish all of this, given the fact that we are in a pandemic and they have been saying that we don't have the finances in the economy?
Well, government does not have finances to sustain itself.
Yes.
And what they're going to do, they're going to borrow more and more and draw down more and more from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund.
Yes.
There's no other place for them to really borrow now.
Okay, so Mr. Tiwari just walked into the studio, so we would like to welcome him to the airwaves.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You're not that late. We would like to welcome Mr. Tiwari, a former government minister, to the airwaves of U975 FM. And like we said before, we are going to be discussing this Monday and every Monday until budget, pre-budget discussions. Of course, what can be expected. All the different issues as it relates to the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. So good afternoon to you, Mr. Tiwari, and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on this station. I'm very grateful.
You're welcome, Dr. Tiwari. Welcome.
Okay, so Mr. Tiwari, we were just discussing the opposition leader today. She would have stated that government needs to put things in place for the small businesses in this country. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think she's on the right track because we have about 17,000 small and medium enterprises in the country. That was pre-COVID.
Yes.
Some of them have closed now because they simply could not survive the lockdown. And it is possible that over time, as the pressure intensifies, they are going to be under more pressure to close.
Yes.
Some of them will not be able to reopen. And many of the things that the government has put in place, we are not sure how they are working. For instance, there are $200 million that was made available to the credit union movement.
Yes.
A first tranche of 100, and then they said they would give another 100. And then there were $300 million also made available to the banking sector to give to the business sector with basically a no interest facility that
Yes.
they were prepared to give with a minimum of collateral. But we don't know how those things have worked and how they've impacted, and whether some of the businesses that have closed are going to have closed because, well, in spite of these
Yes,
things.
yes.
And the big thing for any business is cash flow and liquidity, and the kind of space that you need to be able to do that. And my own feeling is, yes, I would advocate, we have 3 bands of taxation.
Yes.
2 bands of taxation now. One, 35% for banks, and the other 30% for businesses and the corporate sector. And what I would suggest are 2 things in relation to small and medium enterprises. As I said, it's a fairly big number.
Yes.
Regardless of which have closed, you remain, and they're the largest employer. And I would say if the small and medium enterprises could be categorized and offered a tax break with their tax rate at about 20%, which would be 10% less than the corporate sector, I think that would not be a major concession to make. And secondly, the government could immediately, based on the work that they had been doing during the COVID period, lockdown of NIS and having people go to the banks, the
Yes.
credit union, etc., for various things, the rental benefits and so on. They must have some basis on which to tabulate what might be a wider pool of small and medium enterprises that they can bring into the tax net. So it will be good for revenue as well. So I would say yes, the small and medium
Yes.
businesses need to be given a break. They need to be helped to continue to be open. That means that we will retain jobs, and if they do well, perhaps increase jobs. And I think that would generate a certain amount of confidence and certainty, because we're going to have 2 periods in this COVID. One is pre-vaccine and one is post-vaccine.
Yes.
Until the vaccine is found and begins to be administered, we are going to have all of this uncertainty going on. And when you have the vaccine found and it starts to be administered worldwide, you're going to have a mad scramble for reorganization to take advantage
Yes.
of the new situation. So my thing is that we should give the small businesses a break, and one of the ways of doing that is by a tax concession, and that would allow us to keep jobs and keep the economy going. I also think that we should bring the small independent investors in the petroleum sector. We need to give them a chance to explore the possibilities for oil
Yes.
in many of the wells which cannot now be, what can I say, leveraged by the big companies. And we also need to create the condition, lease operatorships, if you want to call them that. And we also need to create the opportunities for smaller players in the gas sector, through stranded gas. That was something that was talked about by the Minister of Finance, I think in 2017, and I myself raised it in 2 or 3 budgets when I was there. And I think that would also help us, notwithstanding what Touchstone has found in terms of oil and gas and what BHP has found. We need the small operators, because what we need to do now, as our economy is kind of closed out and the global economy is, what can I say, not as buoyant as it used to be, and you have many changes in the delivery system worldwide, in the logistics system and so on. I think what you need to do is to use this period, especially in the pre-vaccine period, to build indigenous capacity and to grow what you can locally.
Yes.
So that would make the case for the lease operatorships in oil and gas, and it would also make the case for the salvaging of small business,
Yes.
and it would also make the case for agriculture and agricultural production.
Mr. Siram, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is not
Yes.
a conventional situation we are in. And I agree with Dr. Tiwari. If we were in a normal economic situation, we can talk about tax concessions and so on. Quite frankly, for the small and medium-sized businesses, if they're in a profitable position to pay tax,
Yes.
whether it's 20% or 30%, they'll be very, very happy. The fact that they're able to meet their expenditures, that they're able to meet their expenditures and still generate some form of profit.
Yes.
So I think the profitability is the issue, not the taxation. And what is required for these companies to stay alive is really some kind of sustenance. The overall issue though is that the global economic conditions have changed in terms of international trade and so on. The imposition of difficulties with regards to the oil and gas industry.
Yes.
So we are in a very, very fragile position, and we have to say we must survive. We must be in a survival mode, and the survival mode must take the route. Let us make sure our people are fed. Those people who are well employed and getting their monthly salaries and so on, all of that is under threat now. People at the university,
Yes.
there's a big threat to that as well. No one's job except perhaps the Prime Minister and the President, and I've been questioning whether the need for a President at this point in time. We have to start cutting our budget from the top. The Prime Minister of New Zealand, she just cut her salaries by 25%. We haven't seen any movement in that direction. When
Yes.
the government came into power 10 years, 5 years ago, 6 years, their first agenda for Parliament, and Dr. Tiwari could let me know if I'm wrong, was to increase the salaries of members of Parliament.
But the thing is that nobody at this point in time would want a salary cut.
But not a question of wanting
Even
your
those
salary.
in high offices.
Your salaries are going to be cut in any case. There are different ways to cut salary, and one major way is inflation rate. And if you keep printing money and putting it into the economy, where production is declining, so it's more money chasing fewer goods, you're going to find inflation taking up, and that's a big worry in the world today. Where United States kept pumping money, when Obama came into power, they had $8 trillion in borrowings. By the time he left, it was probably went to 12, but now it's over $25 trillion, and over the next year or two, it might go up to $30 trillion. $30 trillion means to say that the United States, as a leader in the world today, has been printing money, and at some point in time, you're going to have the effect of stagflation. And that is what is happening here already. Regardless of us changing the exchange rate, you see goods and services are going up. Goods and services are going up. Inflation is taking place in Trinidad. Officially, they're not recognizing it, but it's there. So it's not a question of us wanting to cut somebody's salary.
Yes.
It's a question of, and this is an extremely important point we have to, I was just speaking to a friend, and he said in England, most of the civil servants, they stay at home, but they're still getting their salary. However, government has taken a decision, nobody else. Government has taken a decision to close down many other industries, and under the pretext of fighting COVID, stay at home, wash your hand, etc., etc., etc. And those industries and those companies, those small businesses, are really out of business now. They're out of business without any salary coming in. But you have civil servants who are actually not going to work every day, but they are getting their full pay, and that has to be addressed. And despite Duke's bravado about they need an increase in salary, there's no pool of funds to be had again except the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And with regards to government revenues, it might sink below $30 billion this year. Where are they going to get money?
This is a very frightening situation.
Well, it
and
is.
The thing is that for those who can afford it, who live above the middle class, it may not be as frightening, but for the man on the street, you know, the ex-carny workers and all these people who sit and depend on things like pension and disability grants and all these different things, they are probably in a state of panic. A lot of them are in a state of panic because a lot of people want to know if they'll cut back on all these different things. And the thing is that, I mean, even with the salary relief grants and all these different things, a lot of people didn't even receive these things.
That's right.
And the thing is, a lot of people now, with the pandemic, are not employed. A lot of people are not working. They are not getting their full salary. So how are we going to continue like this in a situation like this? And then we have a budget and we don't know what to expect, even though a lot of people are speaking about taxes and everybody has their own opinion. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, the government needs to do what is best for the citizens. But you, Mr. Tiwari, who has been a member of government, how difficult is it to prepare a budget in a time like this?
It's very, very difficult. I wouldn't envy the Minister of Finance at all in this time. And it's a very, very troublesome thing to do. And, you know, the thing we have to understand, though, is that austerity alone will not increase the pool of wealth, nor increase the GDP, nor will it create the conditions for prosperity. What it will do is basically bring hardship to everybody. So
Yes.
you need certain measures that are measures of containment. Yes, that is true. But you have to focus on how to grow the economy. We have not had a growing economy for 5 years, and in fact, a consistent decline leading to recession and depression in the last 5 years. So I think the best thing that the government can do is, first of all, leave the past behind.
Yes.
They should look at the last 5 years for whatever they have done, whatever the state the country is in, as things already done, and they should look at how to make a fresh start. And in my view, as I said, you have an energy situation that is completely depleted in terms of revenue comparatively, and in terms of that revenue to meet our needs nationally. And therefore you have a situation in which we're going to have continuing deficits. So the issue is, how can you grow the economy? And how can you keep your eye on the foreign exchange? We have foreign exchange that will be depleted if we continue at the rate that we are going.
Yes.
Within the next 4 or 5 years. And I don't think we want to find ourselves in a situation with no foreign exchange. And I don't think we want to find ourselves in which the continuing deficits are at the same rate, where revenue it cannot meet expenditure. So there's no question that we have to look at the expenditure side and cut it, but more also, we have to change the pattern of expenditure over the next 3 years, beginning with a 3-year plan, longer term, but you've got to begin with a 3-year plan. And my own feeling is that we should do that. We should really look at the development side as well. We've got to do the development, or else we'll have no growth, we'll have no job creation. We've got to have the containment side, which we talked about earlier. So you don't want the whole old economy to collapse. I mean, energy has already collapsed to some extent. You have a optimistic side in terms of the new oil and gas finds, but those will not gel for a number of years.
Yes.
So you cannot allow your old economy to collapse. You've got to create the conditions in which there can be some retrieval, some capacity for recouping. But you've also got to create the conditions for building a new economy. And it is tragic to say so, but we have to start with agriculture. Yes. Because we haven't done it for all of these years. And we have no choice but to do it now, because looking at the foreign exchange, you've got to manage imports and exports.
Yes.
And the first law is that you have to be able to eat. As Ved was saying, you need to deal with the hunger question. And if you are able to eat and you do not have foreign exchange to spread around, then you have to produce your own food. Now, the Prime Minister has been talking about creating new, younger farmers, a new generation of farmers, and giving them the wherewithal to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I want the government to remember that you have a whole set of farmers who have been supplying the country in many ways and living under pressure, whether it is flood, lack of water, lack of access roads, whether it is the papers for their land, the land tenure issue, all of those things. And we need to do that as well. And more than that, in the old farming community, you also have younger farmers, maybe children of those farmers, or relatives of those farmers, or people who know the agricultural sector and want to go into agriculture and have done so. You have those people who have gone into agriculture with technology. So you have the old agriculture of land needing water and sun and rain and so on, but you also have the new agriculture in which they are doing it through hydroponics. They're using various technological means. Some of them in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm talking about. Worldwide they are doing this, but in Trinidad and Tobago, there are systems with artificial intelligence fully at work in Trinidad and Tobago. So I think we need to look at the farming community and see what is possible. We need to discuss some of the guarantees that farmers might require, because it's a very insecure profession. We need to do some of the things that we must do. And we've got to, we've certainly got to create the conditions in which we can reduce the import bill, increase the production and the productive capacity, and the competitive capacity. And what we then do is that we change the what can I say, the eating patterns at our table and through the groceries and so on.
Yes.
And if you link this properly in a very strategic way to agro-processing, and you also look at export possibilities, and you systematically supported that with the right infrastructure and connections and so on, this is a sector that can grow, contribute to foreign exchange, contribute to self-sufficiency, and reduce the import bill. So I would say agriculture is one of the things that we need to support, not only by bringing new people in, which I support, but also by making the old system work. Many of the incentives, agriculture has a set of tax-free incentives, but they do not work. When I was MP, not so long ago, I had to approach the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Agriculture on behalf of a constituent who was in the fish farming business. He has 50 acres of farms producing fish, selling it to all the groceries in Trinidad and Tobago. But he had gotten a machine from China which would allow him to manufacture and supply his own fish food. And I mean, I am not exaggerating. It took him about 5 months to get that thing from port through customs, through the various hoops that they had to, and this is with the ministerial intervention of both the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Agriculture. So it is not everything that you have on paper that actually works, and we need to have a system that actually works. And I would say that what we need to do is to take the farming issues that have to do, that stand as limitations in the production system and the supply system and the integration system for farming, and the technology system that you need now to to advance, I think you need to have a kind of one-stop shop for dealing with the agricultural sector and its problems in order to increase production, productivity, and efficiency and competitiveness.
All right, okay. Well, at this time, we need to take a short break, and we'll be right back with our pre-budget discussions right here on U975 FM.
KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia. For all your plumbing and electrical supplies, water heaters, filters and water pumps. Plus all parts for Gould, Pentax and Leo pumps. Choose from leading brands such as Cooper, Varma, BTCino, Leviton and General Electric. Call 665-6954 for more information. KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia.
U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio is now on Facebook. Like us, follow and share our page. We'll be sharing the latest news, tips and much more. You can also view what's happening in our studio. Find us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel at RCL U975.
It's the talk of the town. It's Talk Talk on U975 FM, Monday to Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. So join me, your host Mukesh Baburam, on a 3-hour journey guaranteed to take your stress away. Remember, Monday to Thursday, right here on U975 FM.
Gosh, boy, I can't wait to go home now.
Stuck in traffic again, Hare Babri.
Well, guess what? Your day is about to get hotter than ever in the afternoon. It's the new afternoon drive time program on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. Tune in Monday to Friday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. with yours truly, the DJ Flavia Experience. Let's make it hotter than ever in the afternoon. Great music, great info, and great vibes. Hotter than ever in the afternoon. Monday to Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio.
Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited, number 86 Clearville, opposite the TSTT Exchange in Mayaro. We specialize in all types of meats, dry goods, liquor, beverages, ice, LPG, gas, motor oils, stationery supplies, and photocopying. We also provide rentals of tents and chairs for your every occasion. Come in and take advantage of our specials at reduced prices on liquor, wholesale, and retail. We are open every day, even on public holidays, for your convenience. TT Post services are available here at Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited of number 86 Pearville, Mayaro, where our friendly staff will be happy to serve you.
We shopping at Durban Supermarket. Hey, come down. We'll value at Durban Supermarket. Shop now at Durban Supermarket. Come to Durban Supermarket. We got the best prices for your pockets. Get real value for your money. Durban Supermarket treats you like family. Nothing overpriced, it's guaranteed for sure. Save big at Durban and shop even more. Real value to Durban Supermarket. We got the best prices for your pockets. Take advantage of unbelievable deals at Durban Supermarket, number 28 Foster Road in Sangre Grande. Durban Supermarket and Investment Limited, giving you real value for your money.
And welcome back to the program. It's pre-budget discussions right here on U975 FM. And with me is financial analyst Ved Siram and former government minister Mr. Bo Tiwari. And before the break, we were actually discussing, Mr. Tiwari was touching on the issue of agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago. However, before we continue with the discussion, I would like to remind you that you can call us at 636-7547 if you wish to join our discussions, 227-5739, or you can send us a WhatsApp at 378-4975. And of course, we are also live on YouTube on RCL U975. Mr. Tiwari, prior to the break, you touched on agriculture, and over the years I've been hearing diversified economy, but the first thing that comes to mind is agriculture. But if not agriculture, what else could be done to diversify the economy? Because everybody tend to focus just solely on agriculture. Either of you can actually tell me what else?
You want to
No,
go further?
go ahead,
All
and
right.
I will-
Yeah, what I would say is that there are a range of areas, but we cannot ignore the fact that we are in a peculiar kind of situation here. I mean, you cannot, for instance, even in the energy sector.
Yes.
At this point in time, it would be very difficult to attract new investment into the energy sector because every major company is rethinking their strategy. This morning, for instance, the BP president had a what you call a webinar in which they talked about what BP is doing over the next 20 years up to 2040 and how they see the horizon in energy up to 2040. And I could tell you that BP and most of the other companies are going for what they call a low carbon kind of footprint in the energy sector, which means to say that they are going green. Now, there have been, I think, in Trinidad and Tobago, at least one investment by a major oil company, BP, in the, what can I say, in the green areas of energy. And other companies, if they are going so globally, they would be willing to do that in Trinidad and Tobago. So that is one of the areas I think we can go. That is to say, government can talk with those energy companies that are willing, on the basis of that discussion, determine what needs to be done to make those investments possible. And we can then attract them to divert some of their resources towards that sector, help to build it up. And as you know, Arthur Lewis said a long time ago that what happens in an industry is that you build one and things seem to snowball. Other industries come and cluster around it, so that if you have some of the major players involved in that, you could have other smaller players go into new industries that are green. The second thing is that we do have a manufacturing sector that is quite robust. I mean, things are rough now, but some of the companies continue to meet their international obligations, continue to be foreign exchange independent, and they have the capacity to grow their industry, grow the number of jobs, grow markets. The services sector also here has been quite robust, although in the last few years of the last 5 years of the government, they became kind of weak. There was a program that the IDB had funded, small program, $20 million US, which was meant to focus the country on strategic ICT-based exports.
Yeah.
That program somehow was either lost its way or was abandoned, but I would think that those kinds of things, given the digitization that is taking place, given the transformation of industry, given the fact that technology is becoming such a leader in the process, I would think that those things can be done. And the government had some time ago in their budget made a commitment based on commitments of the manufacturing sector that they would double the number of jobs and increase the number of exports by a significant percentage in one of the budgets. I can't remember what year. So that is something that we can do in terms of diversification. The other thing is that Mitsubishi plant, the Mitsubishi plant has just come on stream. That is a gift to this country of the People's Partnership government when we were there. Kevin Ramnarine was the
Energy Minister?
was the Minister of Energy. And although the last administration made a lot of controversy about it, it really is a formidable investment. And significant about that investment is the extent to which they are committed to developing a methanol-based and DME-based industrial sector. And that also is a way of expanding the manufacturing capability of Trinidad and Tobago with a carbon efficient kind of energy, because it's based on methanol and it's based on DME, which is one of the cleanest fuels for this kind of thing, even cleaner than natural gas itself. And natural gas itself is a fairly clean fuel. So those are areas in which we can go, and the whole reason for Massey partnering with Mitsubishi in that particular enterprise is because they saw the manufacturing potential which was possible from the methanol provision, the new methanol provision that the plant is capable of, and from the DME production that they are going into. And they took that decision to invest a small amount in it because they saw the long-term manufacturing capability of that particular facility. So the other thing that we need to be alert to, as I said, we have a pre-vaccine and a post-vaccine economy. And we need to use the pre-vaccine economy and the fallout from the COVID origin in Wuhan, China, and the disruption of the entire chain of production globally, because China was such a center of production for manufacturing products all over the world, with investments from all over the world, that we need to look at some of the companies that were previously invested in China, whether they are from the United States or any other part of this hemisphere. I would begin with that. And looking at those companies, perhaps we can approach some of them to put down production centers here. And we must look for the more kind of sophisticated manufacturing, because we have a large, well-educated population out of the tertiary sector in this country who are largely unemployed and underemployed. And if we created jobs like that, we could create not just the jobs, but a research capability in Trinidad and Tobago aligned to some of these companies. So in other words, we could woo investment that was once in China to Trinidad and Tobago and capitalize on our intellectual capital pool of tertiary graduates in order to, first of all, attract them, and secondly, to find work for them when these people invest. So those are some of the things, and I think we need to keep an eye too on where the world is going in terms of artificial intelligence. The Prime Minister has talked about digitizing the economy.
Yes.
I don't know how fast we can do that. He has talked about Estonia. Estonia is not a large country. It has 4 million people, and it was a country that was part of the Soviet system, so it has been transitioning since the early 90s, you might say, to get to the point now where it is digitally very, very sophisticated. And yes, maybe we can learn something from them, but there are many other countries that we can learn from and we can do. And the thing is to get this done as fast as possible. And there is a new ministry now responsible for these things.
Yes.
And let us hope that they know what to do, they know how to do it, and they know how to bring the resources together to get them done.
But how does digital transformation, how will it affect the economy?
Well, it has begun to affect the economy already, you see, which is now that you can't really assemble and you can't go to work in the same way. I mean, it has changed the way we work, whether you work from home or not, whether you go to work, how many times you go to work. It has affected whether you go online or not and how you go online. It has affected your customer relations and how you relate to them. And it will be more sophisticated than that. And we get into the point where we have to figure out, there are already companies in Trinidad and Tobago that are using robotics and artificial intelligence. They are transforming. Many months ago when I was an MP, I went to see a company that was in the process of that. And, you know, so we have to begin to move up in the technology, move up in the value chain. We don't know what will happen worldwide with the economy and the way the things will shape up, both in terms of energy, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of the way the configuration of production is going to change. But what we are clear about is that there is a trust towards nationalism. There's a trust towards self-sufficiency. Every nation wants to be have under control as many things as it can do. And there's a trust towards neighborhood arrangements. So I think we should try and look at that in a strategic way. What you need is about 4 or 5 people to think through this, and then you get a wider pool of people that you bring into the picture. And the more people that you have who come from different backgrounds and who can raise questions would be better. But you do a brainstorming session, and then you involve the population and so on. There's a business community here that you need to engage. And I believe that this is also a time for engagement. COVID is something that affects every country in the world. It is not a national problem. And I don't think any government in any country in the world, no matter how big the government is, and no matter how strong the government is, can do this thing on their own, because you need so many elements of cooperation in order to do it properly. So I would say that one of the things that the government needs to do is that it needs to go to Parliament and level with the population. It has been in charge of this country for 5 years. Wherever we are today is because of the last 5 years. And it should come to the country and say, this is where we are. This is where we are in foreign exchange. This is where we are in HSF. This is how much we spend on COVID. This is what the balance of trade looks like. This is what it means. This is where this is what the deficit looks like going over the next 3 years. This is what, it needs to do that. And this is before the budget, because when you come with the budget, you come with fiscal measures. And all you are doing is giving a rationale or an explanation for those fiscal measures. You need to come to the country transparently, honestly, all right, and with full disclosure, and say, this is where we are, people of Trinidad and Tobago. This is where the finances and the economy is. And these are the formidable challenges that we have over the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is.
Well, right? We do have a caller on the line, so let us just engage that caller. Okay, person, we lost that. So you mentioned a collaborative effort more so. But yet so still we do have the trade union movement. Just last week, after the Minister of Finance would have announced the date of the budget and asked, all persons to bring forward their recommendations, we had the trade union movement. They basically pulled back because they said that they literally lost confidence in the minister, because they would have submitted recommendations many times before and nothing came to pass with it. And so they are just one body. What about if the business community decides that they're going to pull away, or every different sectors of the community, the country decides that they don't have the confidence in the government? What will happen then?
Well, as I said, the situation is different, and the government needs to have a fresh start. The government earned the situation with the trade union movement and the skepticism and the mistrust of the business community. Because they never listened to them on anything, and they chastised them for all kinds of things. So this is a time now where they have to re-engage.
Yes.
And they have to reset the terms and conditions of re-engagement. And my own feeling is that if they made a commitment that they will not only consult before the budget, but that after the budget they will continue to consult, and they create a structured situation to do that. And the consultation was real. In other words, there was listening, and there would be listening as well as discussion and acceptance of good ideas, regardless of where they came from. I think you can have a movement forward.
Yes.
I also think the government should call in the multilaterals, the World Bank, the IDB, the CAF, the CDB, and the IMF also, to have discussions with them about where they are trying, where the government is trying to take the country over the next 3 years. That means they have to have a plan. And the plan has to be a development plan, an operational plan, and a fiscal plan and framework, so that people can see what is your thinking and how you are relating what you are doing in development to fiscal appropriations and decisions, and to the management of expenditure and revenue.
Yes.
And they can also be in a position to offer value in terms of how they can help you to finance this. Now, there are some people might say, well, the World Bank is okay, the IDB is okay, CAF is okay, CDB is okay, because most of those institutions gave money to Trinidad and Tobago already at the time of COVID. But they might say, look, we afraid the IMF, we don't want them to come. Well, the first thing is, when COVID hit, the IMF offered money without conditionalities to a range of countries. We didn't take them up. I don't know if we have taken them up since. But the second thing is that the president of the IMF is very well aware of what the world is facing. She said recently that 90% of the world's population is going to be in a worse off position than they were pre-COVID when this thing is over. That means only 10% of the population of the world is likely to come through untouched. And that is because their wealth and their buffers are so significant. The rest of us are going to be in a position where, if you are upper middle class, you are less of an upper middle class. If you are middle class, you're going to find it harder to function. If you are a worker, you're going to be more a working poor than ever. And if you were unemployed, I mean, the situation is going to be severe. If you're dependent, it's going to be worse. So I think that allows us to do it. And in any case, you know, the IMF went to Jamaica. That government, after an IMF program, they went into the IMF program twice. They won by an overwhelming mandate. So it must have made some positive difference to the economy. And the IMF is also in Barbados, and they are helping that country to find its feet. And therefore, I think that the whole climate has changed, the context has changed, the way these multilaterals operate is very different. And everybody know that a country like Trinidad and Tobago, you have to find a means of survival, because in a multi-ethnic society like this, with great disparities in wealth and differences in equity and opportunity, that if you do not help to manage it well, you're going to have an explosion. The peacefulness is going to disappear. So my own feeling is that a lot of people have a stake in this, and we should do that. And we should also call the credit agencies.
Yes.
We have Moody's, we have Standard and Poor's, we have Fitch, we have Carrie Christ, and we need to keep them into the picture and help them to understand what we are thinking and where we are going and what is possible, and give them an idea of what we are talking to with the multilaterals. And they will also tell us what we need to do in order to raise our ratings. We've been downgraded 3 times by Moody's, and I think twice by Standard and Poor's. And Fitch was very severe in a 2019 report, in which it says that unless we deal with the price of our money, that's to say the devaluation question, we would be in a lot of trouble because of the depleting reserves. And so I think we need to bring external stakeholders into the picture. We need to build trust in the country by being transparent and going to Parliament with what the facts are. And we need to build the trust into in the country, because I don't think that this country is going to take any malagai from any government at this point in time. And secondly, it's not going to be kind to a government that tries to bluff its way. And you see this rounds,
Yes.
anybody who can't perform is going to feel.
Well, Mr. Siram, your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are a bit different. I don't agree I don't disagree that under normal conditions the question of export sector, service sector, the methanol, invite investors who are leaving China and so on. I don't disagree on the normal condition, but these are not normal conditions. And I keep saying that it is a question for us surviving.
Yes.
And survival means to say food and shelter and safety, security. Food, shelter, security. And I'm not seeing that on the cards as yet. If the government was serious, and previous governments, and when I say previous, going back 40 years, we should have always focused on food security. If you look at states like Israel, which virtually is a desert, they supply 90-some% of their food. So they're virtually self-sufficient in food. Where are we? We import virtually, if you look at things that you eat from the morning to evening, to at the night, your last snack before going to bed, is all imported. Some of it will say we manufacture it here, but we are assembling it here. We don't have the raw materials here. And this provides us with a huge opportunity to restructure this economy from oil and gas. I'm not saying close off oil and gas. We should be very careful about how we use the oil and gas and decide whether we should be exporting our gas or should be using it locally for added value. So that's a whole different area. How best do we manage our oil and gas resources? But other than that, we have to go back to agriculture. We have to go back to agro-processing. There are few policy changes that can bring about that revolution overnight. One is that we have a long list of negative listing and don't allow the importation of several of agricultural produce. People say that no, you'll go against the WTO about international trade and so on. I'm saying no, that is not an issue. If you ban the importation of tomatoes, you can, Barbados does it. Just go and ask Barbados how they do it. If you're still concerned about WTO, that the World Tomatoes Association going to pound down on Trinidad to open up their market for tomatoes, we devalue the dollar. That's another way of doing it. And another way of doing it is to say, no, our limited foreign exchange, we are not allowing you to use it for the importation of A, B, and C. WTO cannot insist on Trinidad saying, no, you have to allow the importers of these items to access US dollars. No, we don't have the US dollars, so we can control it in many ways. So what happens under those conditions? We will suddenly now allow our local agriculture sector to produce the things that we eat on a day-to-day basis. The prices might be different, but then again, you cannot diversify the economy with an overvalued currency. Show me one country in the world that has done that. And what is the cause for this international problem, conflict between the West and China? Is precisely is a currency war. It's a currency war.
Okay, well, at this time we have to break for the 4 p.m. news, and we'll be back after the news, okay?
Time has come. U975. Make it your choice. Something for everyone. 975 FM. Music for you. It's all about you.
U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper, Multicultural Radio.
Power to the listeners.
It is now time for Major News to the Hour. It comes to you with the very kind compliments of Super Quality Supermarket, Sheikh Lisha Limited, the Trinidad and Tobago Newsday, and Darpan Trading Company Limited.
This is the 4 p.m. news on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. I am Nicole Dookie. Good afternoon. Police Commissioner Gary Griffith has denied that homeless persons were ticketed for not wearing face masks. This comes following reports over the weekend that at least 5 homeless people were issued fixed penalty tickets by police for failing to wear masks in public near Harris Promenade and Mukurapo Street, San Fernando. One of the men said he does not have money to buy masks or pay the fine. However, Griffith said he needed to confirm if these people were really socially displaced or homeless people, since he received other reports which said that they were not.
4 or 6 that I've seen so far, they have addresses. How could you be homeless and have an address? So let's be serious. So we automatically throw that these people are homeless. 2 of the persons, we heard that they drink alcohol 25 hours a day, even more than a day could be. And the persons are gainfully employed. They get funds from the state. I see somebody in the newspaper, some newspaper said the United States. No, what I said is that we have reports that they're getting funds from the government in some form or fashion.
Commissioner Griffith said that just recently, members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service have distributed masks for the homeless.
I stated this 3 days ago. We have seen over 300 or 400 masks being given out to homeless persons by police officers. But that, you remember one thing in the media in this country, good news would not sell. So people have forgotten when Commissioner of Police Griffith said that several days ago, when the video was shown with police officers throughout Port of Spain and San Fernando giving out masks to the homeless. I said it. I said we are not, for the homeless, we are not giving out tickets, we are giving out masks.
Former Government Minister Vasant Bharat said that none of the measures taken by the government to stabilize the economy were long-term productive measures. As a result, he explained that we have lost ground. Mr. Bharat was speaking in an interview this morning.
So we've got to acknowledge that we've implemented some failed economic policies. And the question then is, what do we do in the future? One of the big things that we have to do in the future, apart from creating a level of confidence to investors, is we've got to tackle this whole issue. And I know we chuckled about it earlier on, this whole issue of diversification.
The Scrap Iron Dealers Association is calling on the relevant authorities to reconsider a decision to put out a public tender. The tender involves the removal of scrap from the Heritage Petroleum Company Limited. The association held a media conference earlier today to address the issue. It stated that contrary to a verbal and written agreement, it was informed of the invitation to tender in a newspaper article. The association lamented that it has expended a lot of time, manpower and finances in preparation for the project. It lamented that over 3,000 vulnerable persons in society would be affected if this contract is given to a private entity, as opposed to the association, which has approximately 135 members with small and medium-sized businesses. The TTCDA said the closure of state-owned Petrotrin has already negatively impacted its operations, since over 60% of its scrap goes towards the industry. The association boasted that it has been able to assist in curtailing crime. However, it fears that if more scrap yards continue to close, it will not be able to assist in this regard. It called on Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and the Ministry of Trade and Industry to intervene on the matter as soon as possible. One opposition senator has called the government careless and irresponsible in the creation of COVID-19 regulations. She is also calling for the immediate review of the measures. In a statement, Senator Jayanti Lakshmidyal welcomed the decision by the High Court on Friday. The judgment declared that the COVID-19 regulations, which make it a criminal offense to breach the guidelines for places of worship, were illegal. In a ruling on Friday, Justice Rani Budu Singh granted that one declaration to Pandit Satyanand Maharaj, but dismissed two constitutional claims which challenged the validity of the regulations. The judge held that the regulations were lawful under the Public Health Ordinance. Lakshmi Dayal accused government of using the COVID-19 pandemic to curtail the rights of citizens. She accused the government of refusing to debate the regulations in Parliament, despite numerous calls by senators and MPs to do such. She added that this failure has left the public to wonder if it was different strokes for different folks where law enforcement was concerned. You are listening to the 4 p.m. news on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. It's time now to take a look at regional and international developments. We start with news in the region. National examinations will go on as scheduled in the Bahamas. Director of Education Marcellus Taylor made the announcement in response to mounting concern about the high COVID-19 infection rate in New Providence. He said while the concerns raised somewhat justified, the health department is investigating all cases of people possible exposed to the virus. Last week, health officials said an investigation had been launched to ascertain whether or not a teacher at the Columbus Primary School was COVID-19 positive and had exposed others to the virus. Internationally, a new antibody treatment is to be trialed on COVID-19 patients in hospitals in the United Kingdom. Monoclonal antibodies, which are potent laboratory-made antibodies, will be given to about 2,000 people to see if they are effective against coronavirus. It forms part of the United Kingdom's recovery trial, which found that a cheap steroid called dexamethasone could save lives. The first patient will be given the new drugs in the coming weeks. In news of the weather for the period this afternoon and tonight, Trinidad, Tobago and the Windward Islands will experience a generally hot day with partly cloudy skies and occasional showers. There is the low to medium chance of heavy showers or isolated thunderstorms in a few areas. Mostly clear skies will persist tonight. Gusty winds and street flooding can be experienced near heavy showers and thunderstorms. The remainder of the Lesser Antilles mainly hot and sunny day and mostly clear night despite the isolated showers. Seas are moderate with waves up to 1.5 meters in open waters and near calm in sheltered areas. The current temperature is 30 degrees Celsius. And that brings us to the end of the 4 p.m. newscast on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. Stay tuned for another newscast at 6 p.m. I am Nicole Dookie. Good afternoon.
That was Major News to the Hour, brought to you with the very kind compliments of Super Quality Supermarket, Sheikh Lisha Limited, the Trinidad and Tobago Newsday, and Darban Trading Company Limited.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all-purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
For quality items, visit Super Quality Supermarket of Endeavour Road, Chiguanas, and Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, as well as Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket, Cuba Car Park, for all your grocery items, liquor, fresh fruits, and vegetables, not forgetting their bed and bath section, and kitchen appliances for your home. With so many items to choose from, take advantage of our great prices and discounts at any of our 3 locations, Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, Endeavour Road, Chiguanas, and Cuba. For quality items, Super Quality Supermarket and Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket.
To you, Newsday Classifieds. Take Value Optical to be your partner.
I do.
I do.
I now pronounce free eye test from Value Optical for Newsday Classified customers. Call the Newsday Classified reps for more information. You may now kiss the bride.
We shopping at Durban Supermarkets. Hey, come down. We'll value at Durban Supermarket. Shop now at Durban Supermarket. Come to Durban Supermarket. We got the best price. sure. Save big at Durban and shop even more. Real value to Durban Supermarket. We got the best prices for your pocket. Take advantage of unbelievable deals at Durban Supermarket, number 28 Foster Road in Sangre Grande. Durban Supermarket and Investment Limited, giving you real value for your money.
It's the talk of the town. The Stalker Talk on U975 FM, Monday to Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. So join me, your host Mukesh Baburam, on a 3-hour journey guaranteed to take your stress away. Remember, Monday to Thursday, right here on U975 FM.
Hi, my name is Nicole Dookie, and I am inviting you to join me alongside Kenrick Jaggernaut on YouTube, Mondays to Fridays from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. right here on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. We will be bringing you all the information you need to know in the world of news and current affairs. You are also invited to add your voice. So call us live and let's get interactive.
Join our pre-budget discussions on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio, every Monday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. with financial analyst Ved Siram and other experts in the field of economics. Our pre-budget discussions will focus on all stakeholders in the economy and what they expect. You can also join our post-budget discussion on Monday, 5th October 2020, right here on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. And welcome back to our pre-budget discussions here on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio, and we are in studio with financial analyst Ved Siram and former government minister Dr. Botiwari. Remember, you can call us at 636-7547, 227-5739. You can WhatsApp us at 378-4975. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to call us or WhatsApp us at any of the numbers above. And you could also view us on RCL U975. That's on YouTube. You can also drop a comment there. So before the 4 p.m. news, Mr. Siram, you were speaking about some issues and would like you to continue?
Yeah, I just want to say that the question of consultation, we have just appointed or hired or voted in the pilot of the plane, and we are seeing storm ahead, and he has come out of his cockpit and asking the passengers that if they can participate in advising him how they should go forward. And I find that is precisely the ridiculous situation that we have found ourselves. Is either you can do the job or you can't do the job. I have no problem if the pilot consults with others via whatever means in terms of the IMF, the World Bank and so on, because they will have a global perspective of what is happening to different economies. They will have a global perspective with regards to which countries are perhaps dealing with the problems in a manner in which we can learn from. But to go and ask the citizens of this country, which we are sitting here ready for takeoff, asking us to advise them how to fly the plane in a bad weather, into storm. And I find it very ridiculous. And I feel they should stop that charade, stop it immediately, because since the government came into power, they appointed a committee of Economic Advisory Committee. Just recently they appointed a committee of 22 and 23. So I am sorry, if you cannot do the job, why did you take it? So in other words, they are there by false pretense, and I'm sorry to be very blunt on it.
Mr. Siram, before you continue, we have a call on the line. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ken Rasnaviga.
Good afternoon.
I quite agree with Mr. Siram on the points he made. Now, this idea of taking people and giving them land and resources and saying they become agriculturists is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Agriculture is somebody has to be born into, they must be involved in it, they must have love for it. We are in a situation in this country, the Waterfield dairy farms, where billions of dollars were spent, brought cattle from abroad, big farms. Where is it today? Nothing. So we can't just go and give people land and resources and say they become agriculturists and feed this country. The people who are there in agriculture, who need the support, they need water, they need lasting protection, they need to get access roads, they need to get some kind of assistance. They need that. Give it to them, and let's take it from there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. As you were saying, Mr. Siram.
Yeah, I'm saying it's time to stop the charade. It's either you can take us across the storm, or you can't. And to be pretending to ask for consultation here and consultation there. If after 40 years of discussing what you call diversification, you now want to find out what is diversification, how to diversify, and this is the problem with our politics. Our politics are not designed to put the best people in charge of this country. We need to change that. We need to change it. So I think they're wasting time. I don't disagree with the union, that gentleman who said that, look, he's not going to waste any more time. Because what advice can you give? Just imagine, what advice can you possibly give the Minister of Finance to change his mind? Soon as they came into power, I wrote to him, as I wrote the previous Minister of Finance. I said, look, oil prices are down. You have to take the bull by the horns and make some serious decisions. If they had taken that advice 5 and 6 years ago, we would not have been in this position today, because we have government has run out of revenues. Government is not in a position to give subsidies anymore. Who cares about taxes, because the tax base has virtually disappeared, whether you move it from 30 to 20%. It's a question of survival for the SMEs, a question of survival. But within that, within all that turmoil, we need to see a plan to diversify the economy into agriculture in a very meaningful way. And that can come about with some certain hard decisions the government has to make. Are they prepared to make those hard decisions?
And what are those hard decisions?
Those hard decisions are very simple. You cannot diversify the economy with an overvalued currency, period. It's going to bring hardship, but in the medium to long term, it's going to bring tremendous benefit by putting people to work in Trinidad. Our greatest challenge is to put people to meaningful work. What they also have to do, they have to curb the size of the civil service. Every time, just remember, every time someone gets pay and do not work for getting pay, is that somebody is working and not being paid.
Yes.
There's a transfer of wealth from the productive to the non-productive. It is better you pay probably 50% of the civil service and let them stay home. Pay them for 3 years and let them stay home. So there are ways to deal with this. In other words, that is telling them, look, we are giving you an income for a period of time. During that time, go and get some other work to do, something productive. So there are ways to deal with it, but it has to start, and this is where austerity measures come in, and you can only implement the austerity measures by example from the top. And from the top, they have to start cutting their salaries. You cannot implement otherwise. What we have now is a working a civil service that are being paid, maybe 100,000 employees are being paid. Most of them are home. Then you have the others who are unemployed and not getting paid, because government said on the first tranche that they're going to draw down on the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and give the people who are unemployed unemployment support. But that money has not filtered through, and the second round is due now. Where is government going to get the money from? The only area for them to get it is from the HSF. So I would say within 18 months that will become depleted, and all of us will be beggars in our own country.
And I was just about to ask you if the Heritage and Stabilization Fund would have been enough to sustain the economy, but you just give me the answer to that question.
No, it'll give you for another 18 months, and that's about it. But just remember, when the rating agency gave us an investment grade and say you are hanging on by your fingernails, it was because of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and the reserves. That's the only reason. So when we deplete it, we are going to fall, and what is going to happen is our ratings are going to go down, our cost of borrowings are going to go up. And what happens under those circumstances? Many of the investment banks, they have their investment policy says that we will invest in investment grade. Soon as you fall off investment grade, they dump it in the market, which sends up the interest rates again.
I want you to explain to me and to the listening public the process of borrowing, government borrowing for projects and all these different things, and what is that process like, and what is the rate of interest like? But before we do that, could we just pause for a call? Hello, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
I have a question that I always ask, and I don't get a good answer.
Well, maybe one of our guests could answer.
No, Mr. Serum couldn't answer it last time.
Try Mr. Tiwari.
We have two guests. We have two guests today.
With evaluation and people like me, hand to mouth. What will happen to me?
What do you mean by hand to mouth? Could you explain that?
Hand to mouth is living day to day. Yeah, you get some food today, and the hospital leaves and so you can get again. People with nothing. What is going to happen to them? Nobody seems to know. The Minister of Planning, I have just a drop on his lap. I told from the cane farming community, the money from the European Union was supposed to be given to us. Kamala said she gave that money to the Minister of Planning. He said he gave that money to EMBD to make access road for county workers, not cane farmers, and the money just disappeared. So we left in a boat without a paddle. So what are we to do? There are thousands of us. It's nice to hear economists and planners and all of that say what I have to say. They're educated, they have jobs. There are many thousand people like me who don't have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, Mr. Tiwari, would you be willing to answer that question?
Well, the original question was really about devaluation, right?
Yeah.
And what would happen to them. That is why, as the caller said, it is that he did not get a proper answer because he probably did not get the clarity he wanted.
Yes.
And he probably didn't get an answer that would explain to him exactly what he said, which is that if your purchasing power of the things that you need goes down because of a devaluation, and you do not have any way of increasing your income, what do you do? And it's a real problem.
Yes.
It's a very real problem because if your dollar is worth 15 US cents, so 12 US cents as it is now, and it is then with devaluation worth 6 or 7 or 8 US cents, then you have a problem. And the dilemma in devaluation is always how are you going to make up for the gap in purchasing power? That's for the individual.
Yes.
And the dilemma for the country is really how do you create the situation in which the available goods that are locally produced increase, and in producing the locally producible goods, you are able to export more and win more foreign exchange in order to, what can I say, strengthen purchasing power and the power of the dollar at whatever rate. And I think it's a real dilemma. I think that's why it's so hard, and that's why people avoid the decision. Barbados has avoided the decision for a long time. Jamaica didn't, Guyana didn't. And Guyana is in the lucky position now where they have energy and oil, so the tremendous devaluation over many years serves them very well, because when they were devalued and when their purchasing power of the dollar was nil, they had to produce almost everything at home.
Yes.
So that they became an exporter of agricultural products. Jamaica was buoyed by the fact that with devaluation, it increased the number of the Jamaican dollars that you would get from tourism. And they had a very large tourism industry. And they've also been able to build up their productive side in agriculture and in other areas. The coffee is a premium product and things like that. The problem for us really is that if your food import bill is high,
yes,
and most of the things that you buy are imported, buy to eat, I'm talking about, not the other things.
Yes.
If the things that you buy to eat are foreign and costly, and you have to purchase them in foreign exchange before they get here, then we have a serious problem for devaluation, in terms of devaluation for the individual citizen. Once most of what you utilize and use your purchasing power for is imported. The way it gets better is if you are producing more and if you are purchasing more as an individual that you actually produce.
Yes.
So that is the sticky balance that you have to make. So I would go for something in which we really spend the next year or two to boost agricultural production, to focus on export expansion and market expansion abroad, and winning foreign exchange from a diversified non-energy sector as best we can. And at that point, where we are beginning to do well, you then give the export sector a boost, and you also give the local productive sector a boost by taking the decision to devalue the dollar. Now that creates problems because you have everybody thinking, well, at some time soon it's going to devalue, but that is what they're thinking now anyway. And more than that, you have a black market, which is something that the Fitch report pointed out, which we all know to be real. The black market is very real. In the black market, the dollar is devalued. It is at about $8. And until the budget comes and something is done, you're going to find that there is a lot of uncertainty, and then it will settle down for a little bit after that, but it will continue to be devalued internally because of the price of the US dollar on the black market. That is exacerbated by the fact that you have little foreign exchange, about maybe 5 years worth of purchasing power. We usually deplete about $1.6 billion a year, and it is also affected by the fact that unless you can increase your exports, or unless the price of oil goes up by some miracle, and that's not likely to happen, you are going to be still in this situation. So at some point, whether it is today or tomorrow or next year or the year after, I think we're going to have to bite the bullet and decide that Trinidad and Tobago needs to create an internally propelled economy, and it has to focus on diversification and export growth. And like it took that Guyana many years to be able to do that, but people survived. Yes, some migrated, and the economy survived, and they're now in a position to capitalize on what oil has to offer for them. I think that I think it's a decision that we cannot avoid, because you cannot have a high exchange rate, depletion of the foreign exchange, and low export earnings all at the same time. Something has to give.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may answer as well.
Okay, all right.
Or no, you wanna?
We had to take a break, but if you can go ahead and
Yeah,
we'll
very
take a break.
quickly. I'm glad the caller called, because I share your experience. I'm unemployed as well, and I'm still waiting for the cane farmers subsidies that was provided by the EU. So, but to answer your question with regards to devaluation, we don't have to devalue it, you know. When it runs out complete, and one of the reasons for devaluing it is to try to preserve whatever foreign exchange we have. So when we run out of foreign exchange, we can actually revalue to 5-1. I'm being a little facetious here, but you can revalue it to 5-1. It's just that you won't be able to buy anything, because there's no foreign exchange to be bought. When you go to the banks now, you can't get foreign exchange. So who cares about the exchange rate if you cannot get it? And this is the same problem with Barbados. In Barbados, they pretend as if they have a free economy, but do you know a lot of the investors, foreign investors, they cannot get their US dollars to pay dividends. And you as an individual in Barbados cannot go to the bank and take out money to travel. You can't. You're very, very limited. So there are other problems with it. What we should be concerned about is inflation rate, is the inflation rate. And if we are able, by virtue of managing the exchange rate, to reduce our imports and encourage local production, when you encourage local production, in the medium and long term, we have a better control on inflation. So there are other things to do with it, and I agree with you. If at the moment our propensity to import is so high, then obviously our devaluation is going to, we have to change our propensity to import. That means the amount of goods and services we import, we have to change that. And therefore we need to do that in several ways, a basket of policies that the government must implement. One of it is the negative listing as well. So we have to control it, and then we have to give incentives for local manufacturers, local agriculturists, etc. And then we are able to move the country into a place where we will be self-sufficient in food, where we will have control on inflation. And inflation is the issue, not the exchange rate.
Okay, so at this time we're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with pre-budget discussions right here on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio.
Greeted in the wonderful name of Jesus. My name is Bishop Kelvin Khan from Endurance Ministry International. Our new location is in Railway Road, Londonville. You can tune into 97.5 every Sunday morning from 6 a.m. till 8. Tell your nanny and your nana, your chachi, your chacha, your grandpa, your grandma. We need to pray for our nation. God bless you. Thank you.
U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio is now on Facebook. Like us, follow and share our page. We'll be sharing the latest news, tips and much more. You can also view what's happening in our studio. Find us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel at RCL U975.
Visit Top Gear Auto Parts and Repairs today at Southern Main Road, Couva, opposite the Anglican School. They specialize in tune-ups, injector cleaning, transmission flush, brakes and suspension, vehicle diagnostics, wheel alignment and balancing, and all general auto maintenance. Call us today on 271-6525. Top Gear Auto Parts and Repairs, your one-stop shop.
Gosh, boy.
I can't wait to go home now.
Stuck in traffic again, Hare Bapre.
Well, guess what? Your day is about to get hotter than ever in the afternoon. It's the new afternoon drive time program on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. Tune in Monday to Friday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. with yours truly, the DJ Flavia Experience. Let's make it hotter than ever in the afternoon. Great music, great info, and great vibes. Hotter than ever in the afternoon. Monday to Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio.
It's the talk of the town. It's Talk It Up on U975 FM Monday to Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. So join me, your host Mukesh Baburam, on a 3-hour journey guaranteed to take your stress away. Remember, Monday to Thursday, right here on U975 FM.
We shopping at Durban Supermarkets. Hey, come down. We'll value at Durban Supermarket. Shop now at Durban Supermarket. Come to Durban Supermarkets. We got the best prices for your pockets. Get real value for your money. Durban Supermarket treats you like family. Nothing overpriced. It's guaranteed for sure. Save big at Durban and shop even more. Real value to Durban Supermarket. We got the best prices for your pockets. Take advantage of unbelievable deals at Durban Supermarket, number 28 Foster Road in Sangre Grande. Durban Supermarket and Investment Limited, giving you real value for your money.
And welcome back to pre-budget discussions on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio, and we have in studio with us financial analyst Ved Siram and former government minister Dr. Bo Tiwari. Prior to our caller, we were discussing, I asked a question and I wanted you all to explain to me the process of government borrowing from outside entities and what is the process like and what are the rate in terms of interest and all those different things. So could you all shed some light on that so at least our listeners could understand, because so many times we hear that, you know, government is borrowing from this one and that one, or, you know, and people don't understand, you know, why we borrow, the need for borrowing, and the entire process that's involved in borrowing.
Go ahead. All right. Well, you borrow for many reasons.
Is it necessary to borrow to begin with?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason is that if you want to develop your country, all right, there may be things that you want to develop that the revenue side of your economy will not generate enough capital for. You wouldn't have, and you don't want to take your foreign exchange reserves and spend it, and you do not want to take your heritage and stabilization fund and spend it under normal circumstances. So it is good to borrow, but you have to be prudent in borrowing, because anything you borrow, you have to pay back. And you have to pay back with interest. And in that kind of situation, you have to make sure that you generate enough revenue, not only to meet your expenses, but to meet your debt obligations. And therefore, borrowing has to be something that you have to be very cautious about. But our situation here, I mean, as I said, I think it's important for the Minister of Finance to come to the Parliament and give clarity and honesty and full disclosure on this. But based on figures that are available to us, we have about just over 102 billion dollars of direct government debt, as identified by the central bank. And chances are we have another 50 or 60 billion dollars worth of contingent liabilities. And that was pre-COVID. And since the COVID period, we've gotten some grants from World Bank, from CAF, and other institutions, but we have also borrowed some money from those institutions so that the amount of debt has gone up.
Yes.
We have also drawn 1.5 billion US dollars from the HSF. That is the second drawdown that we
Yes.
had. One was pre-COVID. And what is happening is that we, at the same time that we are not at the same time that our revenue from oil is virtually is significantly down, and our foreign exchange is going down, and our imports continue at the same rate, and our exports is significantly down, we have accrued a significant amount of debt in the country. And therefore, and the economy has been declining. It declined in 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20. And it'll probably decline again in 2021. And if you have a declining economy and you have a fall in your GDP, the Prime Minister says 10%. Other economists say that we've dropped about 20%. And when you look at how we've dropped over the last 5 years, plus what has happened in the COVID period, it probably is about 18 or 20% in fact. When you have that kind of situation, it's very hard to continue to service the debt because that doesn't go down, the
Yes.
interest doesn't go down. And you are running the risk of having, as Vade was pointing out, the debt basically reclassified,
Yes.
and you having to go into the market at a higher rate, or the debt being sold at a rate that is much higher, and it presents a problem for the country. So my own feeling is precisely that is why you have to bring the multilaterals
Yes.
in consultation with yourself.
Yes.
And also why you have to bring the ratings agencies in. And the reason for calling the private sector together with labor, NGOs, public service, and the government is because if you have a plan that is likely to get us to the point of recovery and growth, everybody has to latch on to that path. You have to have some kind of support, a kind of moratorium on behaviors that are required in order to be able to do that. Because if you do not recover and you do not grow,
Yes.
you're not going to solve the jobs problem. You're not going to solve the revenue problem. You're not going to solve the export problem, the trade problem, the balance of trade issues, none of those. And you're really going to find yourself in a deteriorating situation where the country can become not just an economic basket case, but a failed state.
Yes.
Now, Trinidad and Tobago is not a failed state, but I think we've been heading there for some time in terms of the deterioration of our institutions. And this is the time that you have to be most careful about what happens to the state. And we have never been a basket case, but we came close to a situation in which we actually had no money in the treasury in 1986. And we had to go to the IMF.
Right.
And it was for a minimal amount of money in that time, but we had to go. And it caused no set of ruction and instability in the economy and the country after that. And my own feeling, and I think Vade was warning about this, is that you are at the point now where all your foreign exchange could be depleted. where you cannot continue to import at the rate that you are, and in which you have to grow the exports, and in which you have to produce more of what you consume, and you have to produce things that other people in the world want to buy.
Yes.
And now might well be the time when, in order to get to that point, you might have to borrow some more.
But then,
Because you have no means of generating the revenue to do that.
but then that will
Because-
put the country in a further debt.
Yes, because you cannot have the country focus on expenditure for recurrent expenditure alone, especially at the rate that we have it now. All right, with little room for development, and expect to grow.
But is
You're
it
just
feasible?
going to deteriorate.
Is it feasible to put the country in a further debt situation?
It is possible, but you have to, that's why it's important to bring all these stakeholders together, because a key part of that, of the growth equation, is for the private sector to have the confidence required to invest.
Right.
Now, the private sector in Trinidad and Tobago pre-COVID was investing, but they were investing abroad. They were investing in Jamaica.
Right.
They were investing in St. Martin. They were investing in Barbados. They were investing in Colombia.
And why would they have,
in Dominican.
what would have pushed them to invest outside of Trinidad
Foreign
and Tobago?
exchange,
Okay.
which is that they could not get the foreign exchange here, but in those countries, they had control of their foreign exchange. All right? In the same way that exporters here who are doing well abroad have control of a significant amount of foreign exchange which they earn themselves. So, this whole thing requires thought, collaboration, and a plan that you can stick to and tweak as necessary, in which everybody buys in, and in which you can follow a certain trajectory, pursuing a certain outcome. If we cannot do that, if we go back to the pre-COVID days where government get up one morning by VAPs and say they want to do this and they just do it, where you simply think of elections rather than a country and a more desirable future, and you do what is politically expedient. If you simply do things on the basis of partisan interests, if you do things on the basis of what the cabal in your party says, or if you do things on the basis of what your financiers tell you to do, I think we are headed for serious, serious trouble in Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, we have a caller on the line. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Our biggest problem in this country is money leaving this country. Imports. Every dollar that leaves this country is a dollar lost from the economy, not to return. And we have billions every year going out. The first thing we have to do is to stop that. And stop it by producing what we eat, what we use, and look at how we can market what we have abroad, and stop all this importation.
We agree on that. We agree on that. We can't stop all the importation. We can stop some. You see, for instance, I was on a, on a Zoom chat with a few people.
Yes.
And one of the ladies was saying that Singapore had found a way of controlling the importation of cars at a certain point in their evolution. And that was that you could not buy a car unless you, in other words, you eliminated the car that you had. So people would have to keep their cars longer, those kinds of things. And I mean, one of the biggest drain on imports in Trinidad and Tobago, besides food, is the car imports industry.
Used cars and
So, I mean, and we do not produce cars. I mean, so that is one issue. the other thing too is that we have a lot of franchises here, you know.
Yes.
Kentucky is a franchise.
Yes.
What you call the coffee?
Starbucks.
Starbucks is a franchise and so on. And I mean, those things,
Yes.
they make a difference into what happens to well, first, how they use foreign exchange. Well, first of all, how they get it, and how they use it, and then they do not deposit any, I mean, and then you repatriate.
Yes.
You know, so, I mean, those are things that you might want to think about, and as you address the issue of restructuring the economy, this business of local production, this business of indigenizing the production base, this business of localizing the production system,
Yes.
I mean, is really important.
But we do have a lot of local products on the market. It's just our citizens, us Trinidadians, we tend to live like foreigners. We want to have everything we want to do everything the American way. So we want the American food and everything that is imported from America and from all these other countries, because we want to live like, we want to live that way, and we tend to turn our backs from our local fresh, even simple things like our fresh produce. We turn our backs on that. We would prefer to buy carrots that are imported from somewhere else,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one side of the equation, but the second thing is the availability. The foreign exchange should make the availability possible, and then the structure of your local agricultural production system and the distribution of supplies to the various retail
I would have had a conversation with a young farmer some time ago, and he said to me that for so long they've been trying to get NAMDEFCO to buy all their fresh produce and sell it over to the small man, the groceries and all these different things, and yet that still has not been done. So even they themselves, they have problems in getting their produce out there into the markets and to have it sold. So if there's any way that the government could assist them in actually getting their produce sold in the markets, in the local markets.
I raised that earlier when I talked about agriculture. I said what they need is a discussion that would lead to an arrangement that would give them a certain amount of security and certainty. That's to say, their produce will be bought, it will be bought at a certain price, etc. And you then take it from there, but that would be the beginning of the process. You see, you're not going to get 100 farmers to produce so many pounds of this and so many pounds of that and so many, unless you can guarantee that there's a buyer at the end. Because for him to go now and look for a market to sell that on his own when the thing ready,
it's challenging
to write, it is just too hard. But if he knows that he's producing 10 pounds for this, or 100 pounds or 1,000 pounds, and there's a guaranteed market and he knows what the price, then he can produce the suit. And I think that you need to interfere in the market a little bit if you want to begin the restructuring of the economy. You can't leave it to just a free market.
Okay. Well, at this time we need to take another short break, and we'll get back to you right after this with our pre-budget discussions on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio.
Kathy's School Sport Enterprises Limited, number 86 Pierreville, opposite the TSTT Exchange in Mayaro. We specialize in all types of meats, dry goods, liqueur, beverages, ice, LPG, gas, motor oils, stationery supplies, and photocopying. We also provide rentals of tents and chairs for your every occasion. Come in and take advantage of our specials at reduced prices on liqueur, wholesale and retail. We are open every day, even on public holidays, for your convenience. TT Post services are available here at Kathy's School Sport Enterprises Limited of number 86 Pierreville, Mayaro, where our friendly staff will be happy to serve you.
This is Samuel Ramu inviting you on a journey down memory lane.
with enchanting songs on the program Nightlight, Mondays to Thursdays, 9 p.m. to 12 midnight. Let your heart sing along with the music on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper, Multicultural Radio.
U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio is now on Facebook. Like us, follow and share our page. We'll be sharing the latest news, tips and much more. You can also view what's happening in our studio. Find us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel at RCL U975.
KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia, for all your plumbing and electrical supplies, water heaters, filters and water pumps, plus all parts for Gould, Pentax and Leo pumps. Choose from leading brands such as Cooper, Varma, BTCino, Leviton and General Electric. Call 665-6954 for more information. KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia.
Hi, my name is Nicole Dookie, and I am inviting you to join me alongside Kenred Jaggernaut on YouTube, Mondays to Fridays from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. right here on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. We will be bringing you all the information you need to know in the world of news and current affairs. You are also invited to add your voice. So call us live and let's get interactive.
Join our pre-budget discussions on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio, every Monday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. with financial analyst Ved Siram and other experts in the field of economics. Our pre-budget discussions will focus on all stakeholders in the economy and what they expect. You can also join our post-budget discussion on Monday, 5th October 2020, right here on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio.
नबियों के सरदार मोहम्मद नबियों के सरदार
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and the blessings of Almighty Allah be upon each and every one of you. My name is Shazad Ali, and here's an invitation to join me every weekday morning 5 o'clock for the program Teachings of Islam right here on U975 FM. Assalamu alaikum.
Trinidad, tell me what scene you on. Do you just like political confusion? You criticizing the way you live, yet you can't produce an alternative. You say you against the power structure, you ain't like the opposition either. But take care, you jump out the hot water and end up in the center of the fire. Because you refuse to vote in election, but then you want revolution. You're strongly against communism. You walk out on colonialism. You say if William had to go, but who to replace him? You ain't know. So to make a long story short from in front, Trinidadians ain't really know what they want. My friend, if you don't want democracy, the opposite is guerrilla activity. If you don't want democratic improvement, you have to want a revolutionist government. And yet when Guy Harewood went in the hills with Jennifer Jones, you let them get killed. All you're doing is grinning and skylarking. You come like the ass in the lion's skin, because you say Robinson is a traitor. You say what's than that about Ranger. You say Kamal seeking his own interest. You call Millet a Marxist Leninist. You are ODAC, neither DLP, and you say PNM is only ratchetty. Well, you tying up yourself. I gonna tell you why. Trinidadians just like plenty mama guy. Trinidadian talking black power. It's not wrong for a man to love his culture. Yes, you walk around with your afro flat and you're dragging alpagat and patsapat. But although they're rapping about Africa, you're eating roti like if you're born in India. So who you gonna blame when you make your book and end up like a cat on a hunting roof? Because you say you're going Afro all the way. Let you smile when they bring in Tony May. William say he want to retire. You beg him to stay a little longer. You reject Carl's act on public order. Now you want the same Carl for Prime Minister. Like your sense of reasoning goes and comes. It won't surprise me if you call back Albert Drums. You say that you didn't want no dictator, yet you want one fella to reign forever. About El Malik, you say he guilty. Parmasadi the same, yet you set him free. Long ago you didn't want Fidel Castro, but now you say the same Castro is a hero. Well, this attitude, like Humpty Dumpty, you might fall off the wall eventually. Because you say Butler was too high-handed. Even Maraj uneducated. You say that we can't trust Jamada. You find Sukaran to Konkosa. You say the accent is on the young man. Yet you run and call back Ashford Sinanan. But you won't call back until you call disaster. Like the colonial days of the slave master.
Welcome back to Pre-Budget Discussions here on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. We're into our final hour of the show today, and we are still joined in studio by financial analyst Ved Siram and former member of government Dr. Po Tiwari. And like I said, we are in our pre-budget discussions, and you can call us at 636-7547, 227-5739. You can WhatsApp us at 378-4975. You can also view us on YouTube at RCL U975, and you can also drop us a comment right there. So the other issue that I wanted to touch on this afternoon, gentlemen, is the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And I want you to explain again to the national community how First of all, what is this fund? Where does the finances come from for this fund, and how does this fund work?
Okay, that fund was set up, I think, by the UNC many years ago under Mr. Pandey, am I right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and
I was formalized by Manning.
right. And it was to say, look, once we're getting surpluses from the energy sector, let us try and put aside some for a rainy day. And that was how and there was I think the special act was enacted to deal with it. And the whole idea was that it did not quite, in my view, describe what exactly was a rainy day, but it gave a maximum amount you can take out every year, I think $260 million. However, it did not prevent the government from coming to Parliament and asking for a change in law, which they did recently, and withdrew or got approval to withdraw $1.5 billion. But by and large, these are funds set aside from your main industry, and other oil countries, oil-dependent, energy-dependent countries have a similar arrangement. Kuwait, which is they would have had several $billion. I think this was in the 90s. They had over $100 million in such a fund. You look at Norway; they have put aside a tremendous amount. I believe probably in excess of $1 trillion US. So this fund was really designed. The question is whether we took out enough to set aside for a rainy day, and what precisely is the rainy day. I know that economist Valmiki was suggesting that be very careful it was set aside for a rainy day. If ever there was a rainy day, I think it is now. Dr. Tiwari, you would probably be more familiar with.
Yeah, no, I don't know that there's anything to add except that there's a limit below which you cannot go, right? And that is what has led to discussion on various occasions about whether there should be a heritage side of the fund which you cannot touch, and a stabilization of the fund which you can touch under certain circumstances like now. And but even in the existing fund, we are almost close to where we cannot dip unless we go to the Parliament and change the law, which is that I believe that if you end up with $4.5 billion, you cannot touch any more of the fund. So it's not likely to be depleted, that $4.5 billion, unless the government goes to the Parliament to change the law. And I think that there will be problems with that if they did. But you know, we talked about a lot of things, and when earlier in the discussion, in the first hour of the discussion, we talked about agriculture, both Ved and I, and we were very supportive, and some callers called and they were very supportive also of agricultural trust, food production trust, and a self-sufficiency trust, and a reduction of imports trust. And I think that there's a kind of consensus about that. But Ved also raised two other issues. One was shelter. We didn't get a chance to talk about that.
Yes.
And the other one was security, which we did not talk about. So we may get to security. It's very important because without security, you have nothing. But I want to talk a little bit about the business of shelter.
Yes.
Trinidad and Tobago, we have a known situation in which the demand for housing, the remaining demand for housing is about 140,000 people who want houses. The difficulty with that now is that people might want houses and they might need housing.
Yes.
Before the show, we were talking about the quality of housing in some areas and so on. So they might want housing and they might need housing, but they might not be able to pay for it. So you have a real problem there. And there are two ways of providing, well, three ways in which people could get housing. One is you can work hard and save and make an investment in either land or a house, and you pay the mortgage.
Yes.
Right? The other one is that if you win a lottery, I mean, you could buy a property. But most people need land in order to begin the process of building, and they don't have it, and it's hard for them to get a piece of land. So in the past, we've had things like land for the landless systems.
Yes.
That's why people squat, so we've had squatter regularization and so on. And you've also had housing of various kinds, including low-cost housing, in which you have low-cost mortgages.
Yes.
And people are then able to do it. But all of these people need to be able to work in order to have the housing. So, but that doesn't change the fact that whether they can work or not, you still have a housing crisis in the country. You have it on the squatter and the regularization side. You have it on the land tenure side for agricultural producers, for farmers. And you have it on the housing needs side for those who are homeless or living with family or can't afford a house and things like that. So if you had 140,000 houses to produce, there are ways of doing that. You could ask the government could do it.
Yes.
But it takes a lot of money to go into for government to spend into construction, and then after that you're getting the money in driblets from mortgages, right? The second thing is that you could ask the private sector to do it, but the chances are that the private sector will only cater to certain markets, which the bank can support. And if the bank can't support it, private sector not going into that kind of housing. And then there's the option of public-privates, which is that the government can provide land to the developer, and the developer would then make the investment, and government and the developer together could then work out the arrangements that would allow people to purchase. And then finally, there is the land-only model, land to the landless, in which you make land available at a very reasonable cost, and the person then builds a house room by room depending on their means and so on. But this business of shelter is very important, and the business of building a home, because it does create a certain amount of security, it creates equity, it makes you a participant in the economy. When you get a mortgage, it makes you part of the financial system and so on. And it is very important for the principle of inclusion. And on the assumption that we could get the economy to recover and to grow and people will get jobs and so on, we have to build those houses for people, and we have to, and there are many models, as I just pointed out, that we could do it. So that is one thing we need to do. The other thing too is that with construction, with land development, with building of infrastructure for housing, you create a lot of jobs. And therefore, you can at least temporarily address the housing situation by this, adjust the jobless situation by this kind of housing construction. So I just wanted to mention that because it's an important intervention, I think, for the government. There's a need, there's opportunity, there are many models. Government doesn't have to make its investment in it, and it can create jobs. And I think this is something that can be done. The other thing that I would suggest, is that for all new homes or new developments that are being built, that the government make policy that would facilitate the use of either solar heating, all right, if not the whole house, at least part of the house, if not the whole development, at least part of the development, and that they deal with the issue of rainwater harvesting, because water is a problem in this country. And I want to say a little bit about water afterwards, but I want to deal with this housing and shelter issue first. But if we did that rainwater harvesting and we did the solar, basically we will be contributing to more environmentally acceptable home construction, and all the lights in the communities, in the new housing communities, etc., we could also have solar for those. The other thing is that we talked about agriculture, but we didn't talk about water.
Yes.
And water is a serious problem for Trinidad and Tobago.
It is indeed.
It is not possible to do anything without water. Anything that you make, any drink, any food, anything that you produce has to have water. The entire manufacturing system depends on water, and water is a added value, you know. And sometimes water is the basic product, and you add the value to the water.
Yes.
And therefore, it is a necessity. Not to mention the whole business of thirst, and not to mention the business of cleanliness and sanitation and those kinds of things. So we've got to get this water situation right. Now I see the government is talking about water in terms of WASA.
Yes.
And they are correct to look at WASA because the WASA is the main source of water supply, and it is the main source of distribution of water, both to individuals and to industry. But I think you need to look at this problem in a much bigger way. I want to say that water and food are going to be the two problems in the world. It's already happening.
Yes.
And it's going to get worse.
Yes.
And water and food are dependent on each other. All right? And these are going to be important issues. And in a small island of 1.4 million people, given the geography of the place and given the geology of the place, I think we could make a go of it in terms of water. So we've got to address the water question, not just in terms of WASA, but in terms of, first of all, the hills of Trinidad and Tobago. We've got to limit home construction or any kind of construction above the 300-foot contour.
Yes.
Secondly, we have got to stop, eliminate mining of the hills for stone and gravel and those kinds of things, which then turns out to be silt in the rivers and water systems and water courses of the country. And we've got to stop, slash and burn agriculture on the hills, because those things are very destructive.
Yes, contribute to flooding as well.
Okay. So the problem of water is not the problem only of water scarcity, but the issue of clogged water systems and the issue as well of, what can I say, the destruction of the environment.
Yes.
And all right. So my own feeling is that you need to start with those things that we related to the hills and the environment. We've got to have a dredging strategy for all the rivers and streams in the country and all their connected drains and so on in the system. In some countries, they connect the systems in such a way that even the waters going into coming from the drains are collected and then purified, etc.
Yes. Well, just this morning, as a matter of fact, over the weekend, the newly installed Public Utilities Minister spoke about an integrated water management plan for the country, and he was talking about recycling floodwaters.
Well, yes, you have to do that. First of all, you have to make sure that when
Yes.
flood comes, you can capture.
Yes.
You also need to capture water from the rain. That's why I'm talking about rainwater
Yes.
harvesting. And you can do that on a much more escalated
Larger scale. Yes.
All right, and more than that, you could then link that to irrigation in agriculture. You could do that. You could link that to retention ponds in different communities that are prone to flooding. Caparo, for instance, Mamoral area would be one that I could think of almost immediately. And more than that, you can use the retention ponds not only to collect water and to deal with flooding, but you could use them as recreation areas.
Right.
So that you enhance communities. Now, how can we do this? He talks about an integrated water system. But how do you integrate the work for it? It has to be done by the Ministry of Planning. It has to be done by the Ministry of Works. It has to be done by the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. It has to be done by the local governments across the country, of which there are 14.
Yes.
And there are about 600 communities in Trinidad and Tobago identified and identifiable. And if we have an integrated plan for the country, not for water,
Yes.
but for water. Water meaning excess water and too little water. Water meaning capture first and then have an efficient system of distribution. Water meaning allowing water to flow and capturing as much of that as possible. I think we could have a truly supportive system for development based on water. And you need to see that. What is the role of water in the development process?
Yes.
And once you begin to see that, I think we can do something about it of a constructive nature.
Okay.
I just wanted to add those two.
Very good. Before you continue, we actually have a WhatsApp message. Someone sent a message. I just want to read the comment. This person says, right now farmers are not making money for their produce. Things are slow that the middlemen are not buying farmers' produce. The person is asking, why can't the government construct a corn mill and contract farmers to produce corn? We would reduce the import cost of corn flour as well as open the doors for export. Similar ideas can be done for tomatoes, where the government can facilitate canning and producing tomato paste for local consumption and export products. What are your thoughts on this comment?
Well, Vade might want to say something.
Yeah.
Let me just quickly say, I mean, I think you know that Matooks,
Yes.
they don't buy tomatoes. What they do is they import the tomato, what you call it, the paste.
The puree.
Yeah.
Right? And then from that, they make all their other products.
Right.
And that is the same problem.
When we have tomatoes.
Yeah,
And
which
locally,
is that we all our manufacturing and assembling, and all of it is import dependent. So one of the things in localizing, in creating the conditions for indigenous productivity and production, and in creating the things for building more capacity and capability, is looking at the value chain and seeing where we can link it, and then organizing to be able to do that. And government does have a role, but the private sector also has a role in that process. So I will stop there. I'm sure we have much more to say.
Precisely. You're talking about agriculture.
Yes.
And then agro-processing.
Yes.
Now, those two headlines, those two areas will give the best opportunity for creating jobs on a sustainable basis. It will create the best opportunities for saving our foreign exchange, because what is required now is a set of policies and limited use of our foreign exchange to buy the necessary equipment. Normally in Trinidad, we will think of multi 100 million investments, but you can get very cheap agro-processing units. One particular set of farmers I looked at to buy a piece of equipment to process and can pineapple, and that was just about $260,000 US. That's chicken feed compared to the amount we have been wasting. That's equivalent to a Porsche. That's equivalent to one of those fancy Land Rovers. That's what we are asking for. We are asking for government just make the investment, set up the process. You create a cooperative. It's not going to flourish on day one, but you'll start the process. People who are producing pineapple, and when in the heavy season they throw away the balance, all of that can be processed, but it has to be an integrated plant where you use the waste from that plant to manufacture feed for animals. So this is the type of thinking. Don't wait on the private sector, but rather create it, make it a viable model, and then you could sell back the shares to the farmers itself. So many things like that. For tomatoes, we should not be importing any tomatoes because we move from a period of scarcity to a period of abundance. And once we set up a tomato processing plant, there's so many ways to process tomatoes, and finally into tomato juice, which we import a lot. So this is where we need protection now by government. Say, look, all these items here, we have a plant that we are producing, we are not going to import these things.
Yes.
So what you're going to shift, and this is where the big battle starts, you're going to shift the importance of the importers back to the farm and to the producers. And that is what we need to do as a matter of policies, but we need very strong administration to take the step and tell the farmers, we are going to set up the processing plant, we are going to guarantee a market for your product at a guaranteed price, as Dr. Tiwari said. Those are important ingredients for the next 3 years, and then you leave it open to the market. But so many simple things that we can do. And to address to the concern of the other person, the other caller who called in about devaluation, the exchange rate, once we do this process, we have greater control of our inflation in the country.
All right, so at this time we have to take another short break, and we'll be back with our pre-budget discussions on U975 FM in a moment.
A&S Hardware and the General Contractors Limited of 107 Bonaventure Road in Gasparillo for all your hardware materials from foundation to finish. Not forgetting all your general contracting needs. We have it all at A&S Hardware and the General Contractors Limited, located at 107 Bonaventure Road in Gasparillo. Just call Tiki Ali at 650-2180.
A&S Hardware are wholesalers and retailers of plywood, an assortment of lumber, galvanized pipe, hollow section, and steel. Customers can enjoy special prices on white pine and pitch pine doors.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and the blessings of Almighty Allah be upon each and every one of you. My name is Shazad Ali, and here's an invitation to join me every weekday morning 5 o'clock for the program Teachings of Islam right here on U975 FM. Assalamu alaikum.
It's the talk of the town. It's Talk It Talk on U975 FM, Monday to Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. So join me, your host, Mukesh Baburam, on a 3-hour journey guaranteed to take your stress away. Remember, Monday to Thursday, right here on U975 FM.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all-purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
For quality items, visit Super Quality Supermarket of Endeavour Road, Chiguanas, and Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, as well as Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket, Cuba Car Park, for all your grocery items, liquor, fresh fruits, and vegetables, not forgetting their bed and bath section, and kitchen appliances for your home. With so many items to choose from, take advantage of our great prices and discounts at any of our 3 locations. Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin Trin City, Endeavour Road, Chiguanas, and Cuba. For quality items, super quality supermarket, and quality cash and carry supermarket.
Gosh, boy, I can't wait to go home now.
Stuck in traffic again, Hare Babri.
Well, guess what? Your day is about to get hotter than ever in the afternoon. It's the new afternoon drive time program on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. Tune in Monday to Friday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. with yours truly, the DJ Flavia Experience. Let's make it hotter than ever in the afternoon. Great music, great info, and great vibes. Hotter than ever in the afternoon. Monday to Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio.
And it's 5:30 in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome back to pre-budget discussions right here on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. And we still have in our company financial analyst Ved Siram and former member of government Dr. Bo Tiwari. And of course we are discussing budget 2020, and we are discussing the economy. 2021. The budget will be read in the Parliament on Monday, October 5th by the Finance Minister, Colin Imbert. And I wanted to touch a little bit on the issue of Petrotrin and the fact that Petrotrin has been closed. And I've been listening to the president of the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mr. Kiran Singh. And in the past few weeks, he has been saying that the closure of Petrotrin would have negatively impacted business, and now with the COVID-19 pandemic upon us, the situation has gotten worse. And also just recently in an interview right here on this station, former Energy Minister Kevin Ramnarine would have stated that reopening Petrotrin right now really would not bring any type of revenue, given the fact that there has been a decrease in the demand for oil and gas. What are your thoughts on the Petrotrin issue? Because there are calls on the government to sign off on the deal.
Yeah, mine, you on Petrotrin, I've managed that account for probably over 20 years in the bank. So I'm very familiar with it. One of the major problem with the deal is that the government went out for bids for Petrotrin. First they said they got 80-some interested parties. That declined to 71. And then coming down to the crunch, they said they got 5 bids, 3 of which was asking for Petrotrin for free. One of the bids, the second bid, that is, they said they'll pay $7 million for it over, I think, 10 years. That's at 4,000 something per month, roughly. And the other bid now, so one bid was $7 million US, $7 million US, and the first bid was $700 million US. So right away you see something very, very wrong here. The international interested parties, they came up with the best bid, which was $7 million, and in their wisdom, OWTU said, I'll pay you 100 times that. Once I see that happening, and I go to the bank now and says, look, I would like to borrow 700 million to buy this asset. The bank will say, what's the market value? Petrotrin will say, well, the second bid was 7 million. No bank is going to lend Petrotrin money to purchase a plant of the nature of Petrotrin for 700 million. There was a bigger plant in one of the Netherlands Antilles that went for $50 million. So right away, and I've been writing about it, I said this is the biggest con job and biggest farce that has ever been foisted on Trinidad and Tobago. Secondly, the whole procedure was wrong. The procedure was wrong. When you open a bid and somebody, before you even invite these people to bid, you do a due diligence on the balance sheet. You do a due diligence, show me your balance sheet. That's the first process. Otherwise, every vagrant on the street in Port of Spain could make a bid. Are you going to entertain that? I'm not saying that OWT is in that class, but certainly They ought to have asked for your financial statement
Yes.
and say, okay, you're qualified to bid. But they are not qualified to bid. In the bidding process, you say, okay, you're bidding 700, give me a bank letter stating that they're willing to finance you, or show me who is behind it in terms of willing to provide equity. Now, I don't know if over the few months that OWTU said they have to do the due diligence on the plant, but you all have been living there for the last 40 and 50 years. You now want to do a due diligence. If anybody knows that plant inside out, all the nooks and crannies and crevices of that plant will be OWTU. What they have indicated, in my view, was that they want to run from this transaction as far as they could. And I am telling this country, let us not waste time on that anymore. If you want to sell the refinery, go and sell it even as scrap value and find out, because that will be your floor price. And then you can start bids over that. Our refinery, in my view, we are not competitive on the international market. We are not competitive. And what we ought to be doing is looking at our local production in crude and designing a plant to satisfy our local needs, and perhaps you could integrate some crude from Guyana and look at that market as well. So to answer your question on Petrotrin and OWTU, that is not going to happen. In the meantime, every day, every minute passed, that asset is deteriorating.
Okay. Dr. Tiwari, your thoughts on Petrotrin and this entire issue that we have unfolding in front of us?
Yeah, well, I mean, these decisions about Petrotrin were taken before the elections, and those decisions by any yardstick were very controversial. I think people understood that the plant was costly to run, to operate, but I think people felt that the government did not take other important considerations into account, and that they could have gone about the business of making the plant available for refinancing and for an investor while the plant was still operational. And the government chose to close the plant down to make arrangements for the working people in the plant. And then, I don't want to go through the thing again, but they did create the conditions in which the main potential buyer was Petrotrin. So, sorry, not Petrotrin.
The OWTU.
The OWTU.
Yes, True Patriotic Energies.
Now, the OWTU bid for that, not as the union. They bid for it as the company.
Yes.
And I suspect that they originally indicated that they had partners in that process. The question of the due diligence, I think, is legitimate, because it looks like the due diligence process is now going on. And we don't know if, in fact, they will end up being the buyer or not. And we don't know what the consequence of that will be. The two things that worry me are, one, the payments that were due for the plant have been postponed. That is to say, they got a moratorium on the payments, right? The second thing that worries me about the plant is, if this organization, Patriotic, takes over the plant with partners, I don't know how many partners are involved, and something goes wrong with the plant, or the plant becomes a financial liability, what happens to the plant, and what is government's obligation in the process? Because I understand it, they are making an arrangement with a company that has nothing to do with the union in in name, but in reality, it has everything to do with OWTU, the union. So how that will be managed is another matter. And then the third thing is, what are the terms and conditions of the arrangement, all right, regardless of who is the purchaser of the plant, and will it in fact ensure that government has no involvement in that plant, that plant will be a purely private initiative, and that the state and the people of Trinidad and Tobago are not going to be liable in any way in the foreseeable future in relation to this plant. Those are the things that concern me, and I would like to see those matters resolved and be done in a transparent manner. And I think that it is important for this to be done because there are too many nebulous things. I don't like the way things happen in this country in certain quarters. I mean, the fact that you have people who represent sectoral interests that also promote themselves as being part of the national political system and compete for political office, to me, is problematic. The fact that you could have people who are union leaders taking the stance of union leaders and then also taking the position that they are business leaders, to me, is problematic. And I find those arrangements very untidy, creating a lot of uncertainty in a world of uncertainty already. And given the controversial nature of the decision, I feel that the government should move for clarity on this and precision so that the country can clearly understand where it stands, and then certainly what is the future of the Petrotrin refinery, and secondly, that we are completely, as a nation state, as a government, and as the people of Trinidad and Tobago, divorced from that enterprise, except for those people who are involved in the company.
Yes. Okay, so we just
if I could add three other issues. It's quite bizarre actually that a potential vendor, which in this case the government selling Petrotrin, to say a condition of that consideration is I have to approve your business plan. So the Patriotic submits a business plan and government says, look, this thing looks very good, and they say, okay, let's conclude the deal. Now, if something goes wrong within a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and the government says, look, you guys are not going according to plan, but Patriotic would say, but you approved it. So the blame comes back on government. It's such a bizarre thing. I thought it was so childish that something where we have so many educated and experienced person, this is allowed to happen. Secondly, what's happening to price? Suppose their cost of production is much higher than the world market. Is government guaranteeing them a price to cover their costs and profits and a return on capital? What's going to happen to the local citizens who are buying? The other major problem, without the bank guarantee or anything like that, suppose after 3 years the Patriotic cannot even start making the payment on the loan. What happens? Would they give back government the plant? So there's a free option, virtually free option they had, or did they have a commitment to spend X amount? Who's going to monitor that? Is the government going to place somebody on the board of directors so they can sort of monitor and control the citizens' investment into Petrotrin? So, you know, listen, I've been in business a long time. I've looked at business transactions and contracts for many, many years. We're dealing with multinationals, and I've never seen something so childish. I've never seen it. And that's why I predicted nothing is going to happen.
Yes.
And if they want to, they can probably sign off, and it's going to run into problems. And then you pass back now the liabilities on the shoulders of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, so we just have a few more minutes remaining on the program today, and given the fact that we are still in a COVID-19 pandemic, we have fallen oil prices, we have so many things that are affecting the economy right now. I would like you to give me your predictions as to what do you foresee for the economy in the coming months, for Trinidad and Tobago's economy.
Well, that depends on the attitude, disposition, and tone of the government, on the actual measures that they introduce in this budget.
Yes.
And the extent to which they are able to, in a time of grave uncertainty, provide a certain measure of confidence in the economy. And a lot depends on the budget, because I think people having, Trinidad and Tobago having returned the government to power, even with a slimmer majority, I think the way the elections went shows that there was a great deal of uncertainty about what to do. But the government got the benefit of the doubt. They've been returned to power. They have a narrow majority. And people are waiting now to see whether there are going to be any new signals. All right? Or if it's just going to be the 6th year of the same government. The government has a chance, as I said, to break with the past. The past has been dismal, abysmal, really.
Yes.
And the crisis is real, everybody understands it. So that the beginning of the process is honesty and transparency. So that is why I say they should come to Parliament and tell the country what the state of play is. And on the basis of that, long before the budget, they have time now before the budget. Once they do that, then that will then become context for whatever it is that they are doing in the budget.
Yes.
I think the extent to which the budget gives comfort, and we have to wait to see that, the budget could cause a lot of disruption, dissonance, discomfort, tension. It could cause, in a sense, it might add.
But it
to
has
the
already started to have an effect on the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago.
So, to the extent that it is able to present a budget that will give the country the psychological response of saying, okay, let's give them a chance. A lot depends on how they manage the next year, whether they will do some of the things that I mentioned earlier, which is to say, structure national consultations with all stakeholders, invite the multilaterals in and have a frank discussion with them about your plans. Well, the first thing means a plan, that the budget must be the first salvo in a 3-year plan, which includes the development plan, the operational expenditure plan, and the fiscal plan. And the second thing is that you must bring in the multilaterals and talk to them. You must bring in the ratings agencies. And basically, I think that if it does that and it structures the continuing stakeholding and it continues to be honest and forthright with full disclosure to the country, to its citizens, I think we have a chance of moving forward, even if slowly, but we have a chance of moving step by step. If the government missed the boat this time, I think we're headed for a rough time, and we could really see a situation in which there would be a lot of restlessness here in a year and a half.
Mr. Siram, your thoughts?
Yeah, I wish I could be optimistic. I didn't see any major changes in the government from the past one, meaning to say the last cabinet and so on. And I didn't see any changes at the top, meaning to say a new attitude towards governance of this country. What I'm seeing, the whole rhetoric about blaming the opposition for one thing and the next. I'm seeing by the leaders there, the Attorney General, etc., etc. They're all saying the same thing, blaming, and it appears that that game is going to continue in Parliament. I didn't see a change in attitude to say, guys, we are at war, we are in serious crisis, we have run out of money, and as Dr. Tiwari said, we must have a full disclosure, what is the true state of, one, the economy, and true state of what is government financial affairs. We must have a true state of affairs of the citizens of this country. Do you know, we do not know how many people are unemployed at the moment.
Yes.
There's no way to find out, and there are ways to find out, by the way.
Yeah, one of the things we need to know, sorry,
yeah, no, go ahead,
is
please.
how many businesses
Closed.
closed
Yes.
during the COVID period,
Yes.
Yeah.
and how many jobs were lost during the COVID period.
That would
and
have
what
been
does that
thousands,
mean
huh?
for the full employment?
Yeah, and where those people are now. Are they at home just praying? Are they beating up their wives or their spouses? Are they beating up their children? Let me tell you, a family under stress is not a pleasant,
Yes.
it's not pleasant. And you're seeing suicide rates and all. Those are the things that we have not shifted away. We have not shifted away from our normal sparring in Parliament to deal with bread and butter issues that are affecting the people. You know, so I don't have much. The crisis has to worsen to a point where we run out of all our foreign exchange and so on, and that's about it. And quite frankly, we'll become a beggar nation, which I predicted many years ago, that we are pretending not to be poor, and we are poor.
Yes.
We are poor. At $40, our cost of production of oil is $40. The cost of natural gas is more than the world market. So we are no longer competitive anywhere. So if you find multinationals are moving out, those are the reasons why, you know. So all I'm saying is that unless we recognize the severity of our situation, we are not going to move forward. But just let me clarify.
Yes.
There's a huge disconnect from the persons in Port of Spain from the rest of the country, a huge disconnect.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right then, and this is where we are going to bring the curtains down on our pre-budget discussions here on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. We want to say special thank you to Dr. Botiwari and to Mr. Ved Siram for sitting in with us for the past 3 hours as we discuss Budget 2020-2021. And remember, you can join us again next week Monday right here on U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. where we once again look at Budget Day 2020-2021. My name is Nicole Duki, and I want to thank you very much for joining us. Up next, after the 6 p.m. news, we have Mukesh Baburam with Talk Your Talk.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all-purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited.